Reuters did an excellent story on basically selective prosecution. And they didn't call it as such, but as you see the story, it becomes obvious. And the thing that jumps out at you is the banks that have done 18 different kinds of fraud, as they explain in the story, don't get charged with criminal complaints. Other people, if you do other things wrong and you're small potatoes, they come down like a, like the biggest elbow from the sky you've ever seen comes and crushes you. I'll give you specific examples. First of all, one of the things that the banks did was they did robo-signing, mass fraud on foreclosures. Some foreclosed houses have 12 different documents saying who owns the house. Why? Because they're fake. Okay, they're made up. And it happened on a gigantic scale. How many criminal prosecutions so far? None. Okay? For example, U.S. vets, 30,000 military personnel have been wrongly foreclosed upon, right? And there is now a civil investigation on 4,500 of those foreclosures. It is a felony to do this, right? It's against the law. How many criminal prosecutions? None. They only fought for us. Some of them lost legs and arms, etc. And now they come home, find their house has been robbed, basically, by the big banks. But hey, the banks gave money to the government and to the bought-up politicians that we have. So, sad day. It is, I'm sorry, I said felony. It's a misdemeanor, to be fair. It is criminal. In Alabama, a federal bankruptcy judge ruled last month that Wells Fargo has filed at least 630 sworn affidavits containing false facts, including the claims that homeowners had owed money that they did not owe, okay? So we have the facts. Judges say, here are the facts. Are you going to pursue criminal prosecution? No, we're not going to do it. Why? Because they bought us, because we're bought. All right, I'll leave out the adjectives. Shockingly enough, none of the big banks have had any convictions so far, or even any criminal cases brought against them. Let me give you some examples of what's going on. In Nevada's Chief Deputy Attorney General John Kelleher says investigators have found tens of thousands of false records filed on behalf of big mortgage servicers. Huge amount of fraud. What did the federal government do in Nevada? They shut down their FBI Vegas office investigating mortgage fraud. They had a task force. They shut it down. You know what they'd been doing before they shut it down? Focusing on, quote, small-scale swindlers. If you're small, they're coming to get you. If you're a large bank and you've done tens of thousands of cases of fraud, no, we can't touch you, we can't touch you. Dick Durbin said it best. He said the big banks own this place, referring to Capitol Hill. In Brooklyn, Judge Arthur Schack in a state court in 2010 said this firm, Baum Firm, which was doing the legal work for HSBC Bank in doing these foreclosures, had engaged in behavior that was, quote, incredible, outrageous, ludicrous, right? The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan filed no criminal charges against Baum Firm. In fact, when they finally got a settlement, it was to end an inquiry relating to foreclosure practices. The agreement made no allegations of wrongdoing but required the firm to improve its foreclosure practices. You know what they got? They got a comical $2 million settlement. The entire industry is making billions off of this scam, right? And they're foreclosing on houses that they have no documentation for. And a judge says this is outrageous, ludicrous, etc. They get a civil settlement for $2 million. What a joke this is. And the joke continues. Here we are, that same U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. Now, that is supposed to be the toughest U.S. Attorney's Office in the country. They're the ones that normally, before this era, brought the biggest case against the banks. Why? Because they're in New York where the banks are, right? You know what they're doing instead? It's not like they're not going after any forgery or any fraud. Now, remember, all those mortgages are literally forged, right? They are going after forgery. They routinely brought charges, this is all according to Reuters, brought charges involving forgery and filing false documents against smaller targets. So, in April, the FBI arrested 7 employees of USA Beauty School in Manhattan because they had forged documents such as high school diplomas and attendance records. If you're a beauty school that forged attendance records, we're coming to get you. You're a giant bank that robbed the American people blind? Oh, no can do. In August, that same Attorney's Office filed felony charges against the sports memorabilia company's CEO, accusing him of auctioning jerseys falsely advertised as game used. Wow. So those are the guys that they're going after. Why? Because those guys didn't make political contributions. A visiting Yale professor asked why there hasn't been more robust prosecution is a mystery. Well, I'll solve it for you, professor. It ain't a mystery, because those big banks give a ton of political contributions to senators, congressmen, and to the president. And the sports memorabilia guy in the beauty school don't. It's not a mystery solved, but it gets worse. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is the top bank regulator in the country. With the 14 largest servicers of mortgages, they have done remediation for harmed homeowners. No criminal charges, just remediation. The settlement allows the banks to choose their own contractors to determine who was harmed and by how much. The joke continues. Oh, Mr. Bank, I understand you robbed these folks. Hey, can you get an administrator to figure out who you've robbed and how much you've robbed them of? And by the way, those contractors, the people who are supposed to figure out who got robbed, they are paid by the banks and answer to the banks. The joke is on all of us, but it gets worse. This Justice Department and the FBI, they are supposed to be, of course, bringing mortgage fraud criminal cases, but they, through their division called Operation Stolen Dreams, right? That sounds right. Okay, wait a minute. Finally, criminal prosecution, Operation Stolen Dreams. That's it. They're going to get them, right? Not only have they not done any prosecution of the large banks, no charges criminally whatsoever, they have done criminal charges against smaller banks for defrauding the larger banks. Our government now works for the banks. So not only will they not bust them from criminal prosecution, not only do they do joke settlements where they let them pick their own administrators and with the comically low fines, but they actually go after people who might be in any ways in a relationship with the big banks that they don't like. I mean, I presume that those people defrauded the larger banks, but maybe they didn't. Who knows? Maybe the larger banks are just wiping out their competition. Since they bought the government entirely, they can do any damn thing they like with them, because those guys work for them. Gee, I wonder why people are aggrieved with our government. I wonder why Congress is at 11% approval rating. I wonder why if 46% of the country says there's nobody running that would remotely serve their interests, that would represent them. Because our entire government is bought and paid for by the banks.